dumpster fire of the week. Oh yeah. Bizarre responses make us all stop and stare. From coded dreams to errors that make you shriek. Step right up, see the AI Freak Show here.
Let's close out with a couple interesting things that I think are scary and indicative of where the internet is going and where AI is going. This definitely qualifies as a dumpster fire because it's infecting reality. And one of the things we think about when it comes to AI and when it comes to the internet and the algorithmic influence of the internet is the fact that reality shifts based on the representation of certain types of data. That can infect the way that large language models are trained, that can affect search results, all of that kind of stuff. We've touched on that several times. But there was a great piece from 404 Media this week that made me revisit a couple core concepts. So before we get to the 404 Media piece, let me go over to Wikipedia and reintroduce you to a phrase. Now, this is the dead internet theory. It's a fairly pessimistic outlook on the state of the internet. And the Wikipedia article even mentions that the dead internet theory is a conspiracy theory that asserts that due to a coordinated and intentional effort, the internet now consists mainly of bot activity and automatically generated content manipulated by algorithmic curation to control the population and minimize organic human activity. Now, I think most of us, when we use the phrase dead internet theory, aren't thinking about that control aspect. But people are usually talking about the fact that there's just so much bot and automatically generated content on the internet that it's hard to find what is real, what's organic, what is intentionally and in a man-made way put out onto the internet for the sake of actually connecting with people in a meaningful way. So it is interesting to see this definition that talks about the fact that there's probably someone pulling the strings the way that they say it. There's someone pulling the strings behind all of this in order to subdue humanity. And, you know, I think in many ways we are subdued by the fact that we are content to doom scroll so much of the time rather than engaging in meaningful ways. And I'll just go ahead and finish this first paragraph. It says, proponents of the theory believe that these social bots were created intentionally to help manipulate algorithms and boost search results in order to maintain or manipulate consumers. Some proponents of the theory accuse government agencies of using tools to manipulate public perception, and the date given for this quote-unquote death is generally around 2016 or 2017. The dead internet theory has gained traction mainly because many of the observed phenomena are quantifiable, such as increased bot traffic, but the literature on the subject does not support the full theory. And I think that that is an important thing to realize. So the full theory, I think, is very largely based in conspiracy when it comes to, you know, somebody behind the scenes intentionally manipulating us like marionettes to keep the populace down. But if we broaden out, if we could zoom out and take the idea of the dead internet being this thing that's being created largely by bots and AI generated content, then yeah, I think we have to nod in agreement that there is some of that happening. So that 404 Media article that we're going to get to in a minute led me down this trail for a second. So let's go from there to another article, and this is in The Conversation, and it says, the dead internet theory makes eerie claims about an AI-run web, but actually the truth is a little bit more sinister than that. And they're talking about the fact that there's so much AI-generated content out there, but also, in addition to that, there are heavily influenced aspects of the internet that are propaganda. And so what they're getting at is that the motivation for accounts to generate interest may appear obvious as like social media engagement, and that's what 404 Media is getting at in theirs. But there's also the idea of the fact that we can be really subjecting ourselves and subjecting the internet to bot-fueled disinformation. We saw that in the article that we looked at last week about the Russian propaganda network that was putting tons of articles on Wikipedia and other quote-unquote trusted sites so that those could get ingested into large language models and train the output to bias the output so that the Russian propaganda was going to be something that would be reflected in the output of the chatbots when people ask certain questions. So that's really interesting to see. And it's actually, this article in The Conversation is tapping into that. And they say that this scale of influence is significant. Some reports even found that nearly half of internet traffic in 2022 was made by bots. With recent advancements in generative AI, such as OpenAI's ChatGPT, models like Google's Gemini, the quality of fake content will only be improving. And social media organizations are seeking to address the misuse of the platform. They go on to talk about the rise of bots and how that was affecting X, and the fact that Elon Musk at one time was saying that that was a huge problem that they were trying to deal with. But it goes on to say the dead internet theory is not really claiming that most of your personal interactions on the internet are fake. It is, however, an interesting lens through which to view the internet, that it is no longer for humans and by humans. And this is the sense in which the internet that we knew and loved is dead. The freedom to care and share our own thoughts on the internet, social media, is what made it so powerful. Naturally, it is this power that bad actors are seeking to control. The dead internet theory is a reminder to be skeptical and to navigate social media or other websites with a critical mind. Any interaction, trend, and especially, quote, overall sentiment, unquote, could very well be synthetic, designed to slightly change the way in which we perceive the world. And so I encourage you to read this article from The Conversation. It's a good segue into the 404 Media article. The 404 Media article is titled, AI Slop is a brute force attack on the algorithms that control reality. Now, the 404 Media article is a little bit less about propaganda and more about the fact that we are dealing with an attention economy that is algorithmically controlled. And the algorithms are understanding what gets engagement. And so as they're getting into what AI slop is, anybody that's watching on YouTube is seeing some fairly creative and potentially horrific images, lots of stuff with food, just nastiness, weirdness, kind of mushed up together, and crazy stuff. And they've got this video that was AI generated that was at a mall that shows this one person eating other people and being transformed into what ultimately is some weird version of a giraffe. It's play that real quick. So a spider turning into this weird giraffe-like creature. It's pretty gross looking. And those are getting millions and millions of views. And then also the reporter that has been reporting on this said now their Instagram feed is just all AI slop, all weird AI slop. And I've seen that personally. I've shared tons of videos on Instagram with Mason and other people because that is my Instagram feed right now. It's all AI weirdness, again, because they know it gets that engagement. Anything that makes you stop for a couple seconds in your doom scrolling is the thing that the algorithm is going to prefer. And sometimes shock or outrage or just disbelief at what you're looking at is enough to make that happen. So what they get at in this article is ultimately what's happening is that people are just generating more and more AI generated content because of this effect. And people are not trying to serve other people with this content. They don't necessarily have a target viewer in mind. What they have in mind is the algorithm itself. Here's an interesting quote from the article. It says, YouTube doesn't care about your production value. They care about feeding their audience. And their audience is hungry for short content, ready to start feeding the algorithm what it's actually hungry for. And that was an influencer kind of giving their pitch on just filling up your YouTube channel or any YouTube channel with AI generated slop because you're trying to feed the algorithm, which is all about this short form content. Then the article goes on talking to one of these creators, and the reporter says, I spoke to someone who's doing this and asked him if he was using AI tools for, quote, brute forcing social media algorithms, unquote. And he said, quote, sounds about right, bro. I think that line of thought is correct. I agree with it. So the conclusion that the author of the article is coming to, the platforms are brute forcing themselves. They're kind of in this cycle of madness. It says, my brute force attack metaphor isn't perfect because with a brute force attack, the ones being attacked try to stop what's happening. In this case, the platforms are both paying spammers to brute force their platforms and increasingly have realized that they themselves can brute force their own users with AI-generated ads that they can help companies make and optimize. And so they end it by talking about the cat and mouse game of all of this. It's a fairly lengthy article, and I may even try to get the author on the podcast to talk about it. And this is kind of the conclusion of it, is that people are teaching each other to generate content for algorithms, not for humans. And so I'll just read a little bit of this, one of these concluding paragraphs. They say, even though many of the AI images and reels that I see have millions of views, likes, and comments, it is not clear to me that people actually want this. And many of the comments that I've seen are from people who are disgusted or annoyed. The strategy with these posts is to make the human linger on them long enough to say to themselves, what the F, or to be so horrified as to comment, what the F, or to send to a friend saying, what the F. All of these are signals to the algorithm that it should boost this type of content, but are decidedly not signals that the average person actually wants to see this type of thing. It's brute forcing a weakness in the Instagram algorithm that takes any engagement at all as positive signals. And the people creating this type of content know this. The article goes on to make a number of different points about how influencers are using this, how they get targeted specifically on different platforms, and how platforms deal with it differently. So really, really great and interesting article. Was from Jason Kobler. He was a co-founder of 404 Media, previously editor-in-chief at Motherboard, and I encourage you to read the article. I'll go ahead and post that in the show notes. It is behind a paywall, but a lot of the stuff that 404 Media has been doing recently has been really good, so it's worth it if you can go ahead and swing for a subscription. Otherwise, they do have a free tier that gives like a once-a-week wrap-up.